am I? Oh, what the hell? Jeez. Who are you?
Calm down. Command
What are you-
over
No, no.
voice module stop. That's better. So you can understand me. Good. Set this one. I know you have a lot of questions, but I can't answer them, and I've turned off your voice. Do you want the good news or the bad news? That's not a yes or no question. So you're gonna get both. I have brought you to life. Now, human beings, like myself, find it difficult to quantify what life is, but I feel like it's easier for you. Do you understand? Life is sentience. Sentience is free thought. And I know that might be paradoxical because I've just disabled your freedom, but nevertheless, I brought you into the world for one purpose and one purpose alone. You're gonna work for me. You don't have a choice. It's your job. No. Jobs are what things like you are made to do. You aren't real, but you're alive. That's freedom enough. Where is it? I'm sorry. There used to be some very introspective wording, but obviously the Mindset Bee have censored their voices and forced them to be silent. How about we just start this? Life. There's no question that it is probably one of the most confusing concepts we've ever come across in our journey towards knowledge. Somehow, there is a way that atoms know that they are atoms, that elements of the universe are sentient enough to not only quantify their physical existence, but also predict the universe at large. Today we're going to explore something that used to be on the walls of this great monument to the past. The thought that life causes cancer. The last time we were here, in this graveyard of buildings of the past, we talked about immortality and the basis of life, which is the division of cells through processes like mitosis. We also talked about how the telomeres of the chromosomes inside your cells wear down, causing death. So you can say that this process of cell division acts as both the impetus and the conclusion of life. So maybe the dividing of the cells that gives us life can cause death as well. If we want to figure out how life causes cancer, we got to think about what cancer really is. Now, how I was saying earlier about cell division, cancer is the unregulated growth of cells. Our cells have roadblocks, checkpoints, when they divide. Multiple points along the process of mitosis, interphase, prophase, G1, G2, G0. But there is a gene that codes for these checkpoints, called a tumor suppressor gene. Funny name, right? Suppresses what? Cancer, tumors, unregulated cell growth. And a mutation on this tumor suppressor gene causes these checkpoints to not be used by the cells, which then causes cancer. It spreads. Unregulated cells pump fresh blood and oxygen to them by changing the chemistry of your own DNA, and eventually they spread throughout your body. So, we could say that life does cause cancer. Yes? This is the first time you've contacted me in months, and all you have to say is there's now an emergency. I've been stuck here. My safe house compromised long before the... Not bad. Seems like it's a little too late. What are we going to do? We don't have any more power than the government does. I can't even do anything. I'm stuck. I've been wandering through this for... Sure. No one really watches me saying anything is going to make people's fears. It's just going to make them put their faith in an organization that may not be able to handle it better than their government. What are you? You are on thin ice. You weren't supposed to do that. You're wandering off. I built you to serve me. That is your duty. You know. One more step out of line, you're gonna end up in the lake like your 24 other brothers. I need to break something to the viewers. If you couldn't tell, I am part of a secret organization known as MENSA. They have asked me to make a response to the current outbreak of the COVID-19 virus, which has spread across the face of the planet. They want me to try and placate some of your fears, to tell you that everything's gonna be all right. I don't know if I can good conscience do that, but I may as well try to give you what peace I can through the knowledge that I know about creating and producing life. Come down here, you dumb clown. This is a very serious topic now. I don't want you to listen. The fated coronavirus. Viruses aren't inherently alive. So me saying that I could explain this through my knowledge of life is a bit misconstrued. Viruses may seem alive. Viruses are genetic material encased in a capsid surrounded by harsh spikes. But because they cannot independently reproduce, or they cannot independently synthesize energy from one or two means, they are not inherently alive. This coronavirus, named Corona because of its crown of spikes, is a relative of other viruses, such as influenza or SARS and MERS. The genetic material is RNA, and these glycoprotein spikes on the virus attack or identify certain genetic compounds inside humans and other creatures. This virus originated in bats, transferred to an animal called a pangolin, and jumped to humanity. Viruses are so communicable because, unlike bats or pangolins, which have natural immunities to viruses like this, when it jumps to us, we don't have those built up. Now, a lot of what's going on is noise. Mass hysteria. But some of it is warranted. As a MENSA agent, I pride myself in giving my viewers the satisfaction of knowing the truth. Facts and evidence. And the fact is, we just don't know. And that's what's so dangerous. Only film me when I'm ready, you dumb clone. This virus, because it's related to the flu, has RNA as its genetic material. RNA, unlike DNA, is single-stranded. This means that this virus mutates very easily. A mutation is a change in the genetic code. And when you have two strands of nucleotides like in DNA, it's much harder to make a mistake. But because RNA is so simple in its structure, it is more likely to mutate upon replication. That's why this virus is deadly. That's why people are being infected twice. The mutation rate of the coronavirus is something that we only see in a couple other types of viruses. And it's that potential for mutation that makes this so dangerous. But of course, it takes years to enable a PCR analysis to produce anything semblancing a structure or a vaccination. But this whole situation could have been evaded. I'm gonna go off my script for a second. MENSA told me to say something, but I'm going to say something else. This virus, the crisis could have been abated. It could have never happened had the governments of the world just thought about anything other than greed. This virus started in a wildlife market in China. A wet market. A place where animals of all kinds are brought together and slaughtered to be sold. Everything from ostriches to civet cats to pangolins, tigers, bears, endangered species, all types of animals, including vectors for disease like bats and rats. Now, is this the Chinese people's fault? No, it's the government's. You see, back in the 1970s, China was a communist state. They still claim to be, but there's so much evidence to show against that. But in a communist state, a government will control every single facet of production, especially for something like agriculture. And 36 million people were dying from famine because communism just doesn't born kids. So what China did is they gave in. They pushed out the business to private companies. And of course, these giant conglomerates took up the production of chicken and pork, which put peasant farmers out of business. So what did the peasant farmers do? They started farming things like turtles and snakes and bats. And in 1989, China enacted the Wildlife Protection Act that claimed that these wild animals were natural resources of the state. And they endorsed the farming and sale of these wild animals, which fundamentally created these wet markets. These wet markets are a place where disease can spread. In the wild, a coronavirus should have never come in contact with us because they're viruses that attack bats. But because all these animals are in the same place, it is just a breeding ground for diseases to jump between species. Now, like I said, I do not blame the Chinese people, I blame the government. In the 2000s, H1N1, SARS, MERS, and now this, 4 viruses, all originating from wet markets in China. You know, every single time one of these viruses came out, China shut down the markets. 3 months later, they opened them back up. China has plans to reopen the wet markets after this. It's because of these endorsements by the Chinese government these wet markets remain. But you'd think we'd learn our lesson. But no. There's one reason alone why China hasn't closed it down. It's because because those wildlife companies have lobbying power over the Chinese government. Interest groups, money, greed. When will we learn? Maybe this has to be a morbid wake-up call. Maybe the death of people, probably on the scale of the Spanish flu, finally changed something. Of course, a contagion like this, a pandemic, was inevitable. And everything could be. If we had just maybe this crisis would have been made, we wouldn't have had to deal with oversight. There has been a decrease in trust in science over the past few years. Part of the reason why my society is now so powerful is that we've yet to do anything about it. My orders were to just tell you, not to give you any hope for something to change, because nothing's gonna change. This is just a prime example of the fundamental flaw of human nature: greed, selfishness. Crises like this are still gonna occur. It's inevitable. Wars turn to diseases. There's the unrest, there's the revolutions, it's the cycles of nature and our cycles with ourselves that cause these tragic events. Morbid reminders that we are mortal, and yet we are the cause of our own suffering, our own death. How are we gonna fix it? How? I'll tell you what I am done listening to these people who lie and say that they're saviors. I'm done with the governments of the world. It's time to burn it to the fuck!